Could you actually tell us a little bit more about your conversation or interview with the white supremacist that you were talking to, as you know who you are and once you actually meet him? I'm super curious.
Yeah. This total sidebar, but as you guys mentioned, I cover breaking news, and so you all remember. Gosh, it was probably a couple weeks or even a couple months ago now. There was that giant rally in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Oh, yes.
Of course.
That unfortunately resulted in the death of a young woman. And there was subsequently a Vice News video. They've been doing some really incredible work. And one of the reporters there documented her time sort of embedding with some of the white nationalists, is probably the term I should use. And it really... I think, did you guys see that video?
Yes, we did. Yep. Many times.
Yeah, it sort of went, right. I mean, it sort of went viral because it was sort of this unfiltered look at, how these folks were handling themselves and what they believed. And one of the folks who came to prominence, and that was a person who was featured in that video. And his name was Chris Cantwell. And so we had this is a funny story. On our team, we both cover breaking news, and we try to cover stories that the internet is interested in or that people would like to read, but we try to do it in a way that is sort of timesy and that elevates the story a little bit. We think about what can we add to it? How can we make this smarter? How can we advance the conversation? And so I was working on a Thursday, and the dating site OkCupid had announced on Twitter that it was banning this white nationalist Chris from its website.
No way.
And of course that was something that was, right, all over Twitter, and people were having a lot of fun with that and thought it was interesting. And so we thought, well, okay, is there, what's happening here? There seems to be a crackdown of sorts, across different social media platforms by companies, on folks who espouse racist or, intolerant rhetoric. And so we started on that story. And so here I am, calling OkCupid and resisting asking for personal dating advice from them. And, I get to the end of my interviews with them. And of course we need to be fair. So we need to call Chris Cantwell, and he had not spoken to anyone after this video, or he hadn't spoken to very many people. A colleague of mine had been trying to get him, and he hadn't called back. So, I was not confident that he was going to call back, but he did a couple of hours later. And it turned out that in the coming days, there were now rumors there was a Boston Globe report actually saying that charges had been filed for his arrest based on what he had done in Charlottesville. And so he was likely headed to jail. And so now that I had him on the phone, we need to talk about all kinds of things that were not related to OkCupid. It's just sort of a sidebar. And we actually talked several times, and we kept it pretty on point. He was certainly a figure of news value, and when you're having those conversations, trying to learn what you can from this person, trying to understand their perspective, and particularly, no matter how you might feel about some of what was said, you are trying to be incredibly fair, and just let him say his piece. That's why you're calling, is to get his perspective, because there are all these folks piling on the other side. And so, in fact, I think that's what the Vice News reporter did really well. She sort of stayed out of the way, called him out when she needed to, but let him speak. And so that's what we tried to do. And I think he was responsive to that, because he called back and we continued to email. And in fact, I believe he called me after he had turned himself in, and I missed the call. So I haven't been able to reconnect with him since then. But, I think in all things, no matter who you're dealing with, you want to be fair.